Hey, thanks for checking this out. So you're interested in growing your audience for your podcast. Here's some things that you need to do to be successful. Why should you spend these next couple minutes watching this video? I'm a radio professional, over 10 years experience. I reach over 3 million listeners on a weekly basis, and my company, huge into podcasts. So what I'm sharing with you, same things that I and my coworkers and my company, we practice on a daily basis with podcasts. Now, first thing, and this is where a lot of people get discouraged. They're all excited. They got a great idea. They start doing podcasts and nobody's listening to their episodes. It is a slow build sometimes. So you just got to be prepared for that. So ideally, when you launch, you've got 5 episodes already out that your audience can consume. And then from there, you just continue to build onto your episode catalog with your regular scheduled releases. More on that, you can check that out and above. I'm going to post that also below. More on your regular scheduled release and why that is such an important thing. But here, you're trying to get the word out about your podcast. Once again, it can be a slow build. So what you need to do, use everything at your disposal. Social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, post everywhere. And when you post, this is very big too, because sometimes people promote their podcasts on social media. They don't post a link. You need to post a link. You're doing a call to action. So as soon as you put that out there, okay, I'm reading about it. Let me click right here. I can get right to your episode. So call to action. And don't just think posting about when your episode is coming out is going to be enough. Like 5 o'clock today, check out my new podcast. You got to do more than that. And post interesting and intriguing things about your podcast. Kind of FOMO, fear of missing out. Like, I, as a listener, need to listen to your podcast because something epic happened. For instance, you talked to Clint Eastwood and he gave you information about his latest movie coming out. He hasn't told anybody about it. Obviously, your tease is going to be different. Not about Clint Eastwood. If it is, I'll listen. But make your tease interesting. And by tease, that's the information in your post. Why should I stop what I'm doing or make a point of later going to your podcast and listening? You need to pull me in, create that FOMO, fear of missing out. Like, I have to listen to this podcast at some point today so I can talk about it to my friends, my coworkers on social media, whatnot. Also spell it out as to where I can listen to your podcast. Is it on Apple iTunes? Is it on iHeartRadio? Wherever it is, let me know so I can search for it there. It's all about making it as easy as possible for me, the consumer, the listener, to find your podcast episodes and listen to them. And this is something else I don't think enough people take advantage of, and this can really help your podcast and get listeners, a new audience that you haven't reached yet, is find forums on your subject. Whatever it is you're talking about in general for your podcast or that particular episode, and go to like Reddit and find a subtopic there and post the link to your podcast and write a little description in your post on that Reddit. And the next thing you know, you've just reached more people potentially than you would have before. This is an audience that you've now gotten to that didn't know about you and your podcast, but they do now. So take advantage of those Reddit groups and post your material to the ones that make sense. Obviously, it needs to make sense. If you talk about NASCAR and that's what your podcast is about, but you go into a Reddit group about arts and crafts, you're wasting their time, you're wasting your time, you're not gonna get anybody that way. So you need to find the groups that make sense and then post the link, and once again, create that FOMO, fear of missing out. Post in the blog the subject matter with your link about why we need to come listen to your podcast, what you have in there that is of value to us. So just a quick recap, use everything at your disposal. Blogs, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you have access to, post it there. If you got an email database, even if it's your family members, send it out. You need to use everything at your disposal. Number 2, a lot of stuff gets buried in social media. There's so much stuff going on all the time. You need to constantly remind your audience, your followers, your listeners that your podcast is available and what is in there, why I need to listen. And with that, post a link to your podcast as well. Make it easy for us to get to your podcast. Don't just post, hey, it's getting released tomorrow at 5 o'clock. That's good, but you need to do a lot more than that. FOMO, number 3, create that fear of missing out. Why do I need to stop what I'm doing now or make a point to listen later to your podcast? Don't just make it real like blanket statement. Oh, I talked to a real interesting guy. You need to listen about this car conversation in my podcast. No. Hey, I talked to the expert in NASCAR racing about what changes they're making, and he told me before anybody else, so you need to listen to this podcast to be in the know. Something like that. You need to be very specific, and you need to make it intriguing. Once again, pull me in. And lastly, find those forums, those groups that are talking about what your podcast may be about, the Reddit groups, and post links and descriptions as to what in your podcast relates to that topic, and then try to get listeners that way. A little bit extra work, but you'll get listeners that you would have not reached otherwise. Hopefully this was helpful. If you got questions, always hit me up on social media. You can post below. I'm more than happy to help you out. Check out my other videos on how you can communicate better, which will make a difference with your audience, because it's all about that connection. So a couple things you can do to make that better. Also some other tips on your podcast. I've got the videos. Just click the links. And again, if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, click subscribe and the bell to get notified when new videos are coming out. And thank you for watching.